From February 2003 to August 2004, 3 young women found themselves in the clutches of a malevolent monster determined to cause as much harm as possible. Each of these women had been out in public, going about their business when a man decided to try to take their lives in horrifying ways. From inflicting trauma to the head to using his vehicle as a weapon of choice, his brutality knew no bounds. Towards the end of 2004, this man was finally apprehended and taken into custody. A few years later, he was found guilty of his crimes. But in a shocking twist, he was linked to another unsolved murder that had occurred 8 years earlier. Amanda Jane Dowler, known as Millie, was born on June 25, 1988, to her parents, Bob and Sally Dowler. Millie had an older sister, Gemma, whom she adored. The two sisters got along exceptionally well, practically being best friends. Gemma described her sister as friendly and lively, with a sparkle in her eye. Millie had many close friends and was a kind, generous young girl who loved to cheer others up when they were having a bad day. Millie was a bright light in the lives of those around her, making her sudden disappearance all the harder to bear. It was March 21, 2002, when 13-year-old Millie left Heathside School at 3:07 p.m. and walked to Weybridge Railway Station with a friend. Both girls got on a train and rode to Walton-on-Thames Station, which was one stop before where Millie usually got off at Hersham. The girls decided to grab a bite to eat at the station cafe. At 3:47 p.m., Millie made a call to her father, telling him she would be home in the next 30 minutes. The girls parted ways at 4:05 p.m., and Millie set off for home. The last time she was seen was waiting at a bus stop on Station Avenue, where a friend of Gemma recognized her. CCTV cameras further along the route showed no sign of Millie. Millie didn't arrive home as planned, and worry started to set in. By 7 p.m., her parents called the police and reported her as missing. A large-scale search operation followed, with numerous officers on foot searching for Millie. Police helicopters were also deployed, hoping to catch a glimpse of the young girl or find something that showed signs of her being in a particular area. Local rivers were searched, and the route Millie should have taken was combed over thoroughly. When the CCTV cameras along Station Avenue were accessed, a red Daewoo Nexia was pictured at 4:32 p.m. 7 years later, we would find out who was behind the wheel. Detectives working on the case made multiple public appeals for any witnesses who may have seen anything suspicious or had seen Millie herself that day. Her disappearance was so sudden that initial theories revolved around Millie either purposely running away or knowing the person who took her. How could a complete stranger have grabbed her at this time of day in a fairly public setting? It didn't make any sense. Millie's family was adamant that she wouldn't have run away. Crime Watch UK aired a reconstruction of Millie's last known movements and featured a direct appeal to the young girl. Running away was the best-case scenario they hoped for. But her mother couldn't fathom why her youngest daughter would do such a thing. Years later, it was publicly revealed that Millie had written letters saying she was going to leave home and expressing some unhappiness. In reality, these letters were nothing more than a teenage girl venting her frustrations after what was likely a typical argument with her parents or sister. On March 28, the police still didn't believe they were dealing with a stranger taking Millie by force. No witnesses had come forward, having witnessed any sort of struggle, despite Millie having been seen on multiple occasions throughout the afternoon. They felt it was unlikely she had gone anywhere with a stranger, hence believing she was familiar with the person she left with. 4 weeks went by with few leads and still no sign of Millie. On April 23, 2002, a body was found in the River Thames, immediately sparking speculation that this could be Millie Dowler. It was later confirmed that the remains were that of 73-year-old Macy Thomas, who had disappeared the year prior. Her passing was ruled as non-suspicious. Macy likely drowned. Weeks turned into months with still no new information about what had happened to Millie. Frustrations continued to grow for the Dowlers, not understanding how their daughter could just disappear into thin air. As if things couldn't get any worse, the family themselves started facing scrutiny, with Bob Dowler being the main target. Since the police had stated on many occasions that Millie likely knew whoever she had left with, naturally the media latched onto that person being a family member. While trying to come to terms with their loss, they also had to contend with stories being published and unfounded rumors spreading. Bob Dowler had nothing to do with his daughter's disappearance, which made the focus on him hard to bear. Not only was it a horrific accusation, but Bob knew that all the time spent looking at him was time wasted on finding the person who was really responsible. Authorities later apologized for the possibility of missing crucial leads while looking at Bob for Millie's disappearance. By June, the authorities spoke to the Dowlers and told them they needed to brace themselves for the worst-case scenario. Bob and Sally continued to send their daughter text messages, hoping she was still out there somewhere. That month, a £100,000 reward was offered by the Sun, but still, no one came forward with any useful information. In September 2002, everyone's worst fears were realized. It was September 18th, and a small group of mushroom pickers were out in Yateley Heath Woods in Yateley, Hampshire, when one of them spotted something in the undergrowth. It was a body. The authorities immediately identified and confirmed that they had found Millie Dowler. She was found unclothed, with none of the items she had in her possession when she disappeared, including her backpack, purse, and cell phone. To this day, none of these items have ever been recovered. The case was no longer a missing person investigation. Authorities were now looking for the person responsible for taking Millie's life. The Surrey police launched an investigation titled Operation Ruby to bring this monster to justice. A month after Millie was found, the Surrey police set up a large-scale roadblock near Yateley Heath Woods. Roughly 6,000 motorists were stopped and questioned, but this produced no new leads. Items from Millie's bedroom were taken in for forensic testing, and on March 23, 2003, a year after she was last seen alive, unknown male DNA was found on one of her items of clothing. This led authorities to theorize that Millie had potentially met with the man who took her life before she vanished. Unfortunately, this lead was shortly ruled out. Despite hundreds of people being interviewed, extensive house-to-house inquiries, and a thorough look into some unsavory characters that lived near where Millie was last seen and near where her body had been found, the Surrey police still had nothing. On February 4, 2003, 19-year-old Marcia MacDonald was hit over the head with a blunt object not far from her Hampton home. The incident happened not long after Marcia had gotten off the 111 bus at the Percy Road bus stop. Tragically, Marcia lost her life 2 days later in the hospital. On May 28 of the following year, 18-year-old Kate Sheedy was walking home when she noticed a suspicious car parked on the roadside. A man was inside, and the engine was running, but the lights were deliberately turned off. Kate decided to move away from the vehicle and cross the road. Before she knew what happened, Kate was run over by the car. Proving this wasn't an accident, the man then reversed over Kate's body before racing off. Miraculously, Kate was able to drag herself off the road and find help. Despite the severity of her condition, Kate survived after a lengthy hospital stay. 3 months later, another young woman fell victim. Amélie Delegange was a 20-year-old French student visiting England. Shockingly, Amélie's life was taken in a brutal manner similar to that of Marcia MacDonald. It took authorities less than 24 hours to link the cases. On November 22, 2004, a man was arrested for what had happened to Amélie Delegange. His name was Levi Belfield. Levi Belfield was born on May 17, 1968, in Isworth, London, to parents Jean and Joseph Belfield. It is unclear exactly when he changed his surname from Rabbits to Belfield, but we do know that was his mother's maiden name. When he was still a child, Belfield's father passed away after battling leukemia. He grew up with his 4 siblings on a council estate in southwest London and attended Crane Junior High School. When Belfield was in his early teens, he was convicted of breaking into a house and stealing various items in 1981. In 1990, Belfield got into a physical altercation with a police officer, resulting in a second charge. His criminal history is filled with multiple offenses and convictions, but none of them were as serious as what he would later be accused of. Belfield had 11 children with 5 women. His ex-girlfriends later described Belfield's behavior as charming initially before his true colors started to show. All of the women shared similar stories about what Belfield was like as a partner. Detective Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, who worked on the later cases involving Belfield, described him as someone who could be very charming and suddenly switch to being nasty. In 2003 and 2004, Levi Belfield operated a wheel clamping business. This gave him an intimate knowledge of the streets. He prowled like a wild animal looking for its next meal. Belfield would prowl the streets, searching for a suitable victim. Detective Sutton commented on Belfield's mentality, saying he had a massive ego and believed he was God's gift to everyone. He drove around in his car, feeling entitled. When he saw some young blonde girl, his ego was easily bruised if she rejected him. This often led to violent attacks. This was shown in the case of Kate Sheedy. She was smart enough to feel uneasy about Belfield's car and crossed the road. His response was to run her over. After Belfield was arrested, undercover officers witnessed him talking to young girls at bus stops. It was quite clear that, if he hadn't been taken into custody, more women would have lost their lives. On February 25, 2008, Levi Belfield was found guilty of taking the lives of Marcia MacDonald and Amelie Delegange. He was also convicted of his actions towards Kate Sheedy. On February 26, Belfield found out he would be spending the rest of his life behind bars. His defense passed the news on to him since he refused to be in court that day. Levi Belfield was also considered in two other cases, falsely imprisoning 17-year-old Anna Maria Rennie back in October 2001 and attempting to take the life of Irma Dragoshi in December 2003. Both women identified Belfield as the person responsible, but juries failed to reach a unanimous verdict in both cases. Following his convictions, 39-year-old Belfield was publicly named as a chief suspect in Millie's case. This was mainly due to CCTV footage that tied him to the red Daewoo Nexia seen on the road. It's obvious that the car is mine, but so what? Just because my car is on that road doesn't mean anything. It just happens to be on the same road. Levi Belfield denied any involvement in Millie's disappearance and murder. He insisted he was being wrongly accused. The Surrey police continued their investigation into Belfield's possible connection to the case. His ex-girlfriend was interviewed by the police, and she stated that she had not let Belfield use her car on the day of Millie's disappearance. While the authorities pursued this lead, Belfield's despicable character continued to emerge. His past was filled with violence against women, and his conviction for the murders of Marcia MacDonald and Amelie Delegange added to his sinister legacy. During his time in prison, he showed no remorse for his actions, and in fact, he attempted to take his own life multiple times. Then, in 2015, a significant breakthrough occurred. It was revealed that a previously undiscovered document in the Millie Dowler case contained the partial license plate of a red Daewoo Nexia. This plate was found near Yateley Heath Woods, where Millie's remains were discovered. The police decided to re-examine this evidence, and it pointed them directly to Levi Belfield. Detectives concluded that Belfield's girlfriend's car was indeed near the location where Millie was last seen and where her body was found. This piece of evidence provided a strong link between Belfield and the crime. In January 2016, Levi Belfield finally confessed to the murder of Millie Dowler. He revealed chilling details about what had happened on that fateful day in March 2002. Belfield claimed that he had abducted Millie from the bus stop, driven her to his home, and then later taken her to Yateley Heath Woods, where he ended her life. His confession brought some closure to the Dowler family, who had been searching for the truth for over a decade. Belfield's admission of guilt led to a significant development in the case, allowing the authorities to finally close this painful chapter in their lives. Levi Belfield was sentenced to a whole-life prison term for the murder of Millie Dowler, ensuring that he would never be released from prison. His imprisonment for this heinous crime provided a sense of justice for the Dowler family and the community that had been haunted by the case for so long. The story of Millie Dowler's disappearance and the hunt for her killer is a tragic tale of loss, confusion, and ultimately, justice. While the twists and turns of the case revealed the dark and disturbing nature of Levi Belfield, It also showcased the relentless determination of the police and the resilience of Millie's family. In the end, the truth prevailed, and the memory of Millie Dowler lives on, not only as a victim but as a symbol of the strength of those who sought justice for her.